Yes, breaking news this evening, trades, and more trades. How Caleb Nephew formed the first super team of the league. And we ask the question, will Luke make even one trade before the season's over? We discuss all of that and more, coming up next. Welcome back to the next episode of the Jay Scott Fantasy Talk Show. I'm your host, Jay Scott. It's been several weeks since our last episode, and things have changed in the Epstein's Elite League. In just a matter of a few days, several trades took place that very well may shape the future of the league now and as we know it moving forward. Now, I didn't immediately jump on these trades. I wanted to give them some time to unfold and see how they would work out for both parties involved. And so over the past several weeks, I analyzed each transaction to see which teams improved, which teams stayed the same, or possibly even got worse from their trade. And we have to keep in mind that some of the players that are involved in these trades are currently hurt or are on the IR waiting to come back this season. And so you can't technically judge those players for their performance yet. But there are some players who were involved in trades that really haven't progressed to the standard of play that maybe we thought they were going to. And so tonight we'll look and see, were there fair transactions or did someone get fleeced? So was it fair for both parties or did someone get taken advantage of? We'll look that out. And finally, to close out tonight's episode, we look towards the playoffs. We are just a few weeks away from the playoffs. We'll look and see which teams are gearing up to take their shot at the championship in year one, and which teams have already shifted their focus to 2021 and that illustrious first overall draft pick, which could be a Trevor Lawrence. Who knows? So, let's go ahead and begin with the first trade that we will be looking at tonight. The first trade that I would like to take a look at involves two teams, both of the Caleb teams, Caleb Stone King and Caleb Nephew. Now, Stone King traded Aaron Jones and Zach Ertz to Nephew for Herbert and Carson. And I think I can speak for all of us for saying that Nephew won this trade. And might I say, won it handily. Initially, looking at the trade, I didn't really see what Stone King stood to gain from it, as he already has Mahomes as his quarterback, who is definitely going to be his quarterback of the future. I think that's a fair assumption to make. So he really had no need for Herbert unless he planned to retrade him, which is what he's not given the indication of. He seems to decide that he wants to keep Herbert and play him, as evidence of him benching Mahomes last week. So that's questionable, but we'll let it slide for now. And Chris Carson and Aaron Jones. Now, Chris Carson has not been a bad running back this season. No Chris Carson slander here. But he's not an Aaron Jones, right? And Stone King needed Aaron Jones because he had Saquon, who got hurt in the first 2 weeks of the season. He's been out since then. And so you're thinking, okay, he still has Aaron Jones, who's a top 10 running back when healthy. You can make the argument top 5. But Stone King dished him off. And so far, Carson's been hurt. Herbert has been okay, but certainly not making the trade worth it. Ertz is basically rotting away on Nephew's bench, but he doesn't need him as he has Travis Kelce and Hunter Henry. And so now Nephew has a top 10 running back in his starting lineup week in and week out. It's safe to say Nephew won this trade. So 1 point for Caleb Nephew as we're moving forward. The next trade involves Justin King and myself. And my trade was I traded George Kittle and Ronald Jones and Darrell Henderson for Ezekiel Elliott. And now before everyone jumps on top of me, as everyone did, they said, you're selling the league, you're throwing away your chance, what are you doing? Let me explain, because now I get to make my case before any of you can respond to my case. Darrell Henderson is in a 3-back system with Cam Akers, and Malcolm Brown, I believe. I might be saying his name wrong. And although Henderson has been the lead back with the most carries, he certainly is not a fantasy must-start running back. Right? He's not that superstar caliber player that can get you 30 when you need him to. He's gotten the high 20s on occasion against weak run defenses, but nothing too consistent yet. I still like his upside for the future. He's probably the one that I was most upset about having to get rid of. Ronald Jones, I was completely right about this from the trade. He's in the two-back system with Fournette, but now Fournette is starting to get more of the carries. Fournette has been a better receiving back, so Ronald Jones is averaging now less than 10 points a game. Won't miss him. Kittle was a little questionable, but I had to make sure that Justin really took the trade and said, okay, yes, I'll take it. I didn't want to have any, room for, well, maybe if you added this player or not. I wanted to just go ahead and maybe give up a little extra to make sure I got the running back that I needed, because my running back core is very, very limited. And so I went ahead, got Elliott, right? Yes, he's having a down year. Yes, his offensive line is hurt. Yes, the Cowboys are terrible, but this is a legacy league. We got to keep that in mind. I'll have Elliott starting next season, plus maybe a first-round running back from this draft. So I'm not going to pick a winner for this trade yet, because Kittle has been hurt. He got hurt like the next game, and Elliott is in a really bad system right now with his offensive line being as bad as it is. He's had some trouble with fumbling this year, so I guess maybe you would say Justin looks like the future winner of the trade, but I'd like to just kind of put a pause on it and maybe wait till next season to really judge this trade fully yet. Going forward, we have another trade. Justin King and Caleb Stone King. Caleb Stone King's been very active in the trade market this year, along with Caleb Nephew. And so Justin King traded DJ Moore and David Montgomery for Juju Smith-Schuster and Scotty Miller. And I'm going to be honest, this trade really hasn't had a whole lot of impact. I would say off the start, Stone King won this trade. Yes, Moore has been down in targets with Robbie Anderson and obviously McCaffrey coming back and Curtis Samuel and other players getting involved in the system. David Moore's targets have been down, but you would like to think that at some point they'll go back up, right? And David Montgomery has been a pretty solid running back, top 15 running back when healthy, so not a bad add there. Yes, Juju, he's a very, very much boom and bust with this system, right? He's having to compete with Claypool now and all of their Deontay Johnson, all those different players. Big Ben has got a lot of different wide receivers now that he's throwing to Washington and others. And so I still think, though, that in those crucial third down plays, Ben's going to Juju. And so Juju's one of those players that you kind of put as a flex, in my opinion, and say, okay, if I need a touchdown to take my team to have the lead in this matchup, I can count on Juju to get that. And usually he'll produce. But overall, Scotty Miller has been practically non-existent. And so I would give this win for this trade to Stone King. Next trade. This was a big one. I did not see this one coming. I don't think anyone did. And it really took me by surprise. And I'm really shocked. This kind of took Caleb Nephew's team over the hump, in my opinion. And so we have this blockbuster trade of Sammy trading McCaffrey and Kenyon Drake to Nephew for Eckler and Derrick Henry.
One of the worst deals ever made of any kind, signed by anybody. It's a disaster.
Sammy was so adamant about not trading McCaffrey when he was hurt for the several weeks he was on the IR, because he was so determined to say, listen, when McCaffrey comes back, I have a really solid team. And we're like, yeah, obviously you do. You have the number one player in fantasy on your bench waiting to come back from injury. You're doing great. And, obviously he was upset about Drake. Drake had been a big disappointment, which I will say the entire league warned Sammy against that, but he didn't listen. But anyway, and then he goes out and trades for Derrick Henry, who, yes, is a pretty solid, more than pretty solid. He's a very solid fantasy running back and regular running back. He led the league in rushing last season, and he very well could do that again this season. But he's not a Christian McCaffrey. You say, oh, we got Eckler too? Yeah, he got Eckler too. Eckler's also hurt, and we don't even know when he's coming back. The injury designation says later rather than sooner. That's no indication at all. And to give up McCaffrey this early, yes, Sammy's not going to make the playoffs. He might already be eliminated at this point. And Caleb Nephew did not need McCaffrey. So this trade to me really didn't make any sense at all. It almost looked like Sammy was just impatient waiting, and so he wanted to go ahead and get a player now who could get him, 20 to 25 points a game with Derrick Henry, which I understood having Michael Thomas on my bench for 7 straight weeks, but I don't understand what Sammy was thinking. I'm going to be honest. All right, so McCaffrey came back the first game off injury and dropped over 30 points against the Chiefs. And he's out with a shoulder injury right now, but all indications point to him coming back in Week 11 and continuing his trend of getting 30-plus points a week because he's just that incredible for fantasy. 4-point per reception leagues, he is the ideal player. He's that running back or halfback / receiver / just scrimmage player that you can just toss the ball to and say, hey, you can either run 40 yards or you can go catch it for 20 yards, get 5 touchdowns. He's McCaffrey. He's Kamara. It's those two players. That's their archetype. That's their build. So 100% Caleb Nephew won this trade. Now he can pair up, Jones with McCaffrey. That was kind of the okay. This guy has a super team moment. Another one. This is my defining trade. I don't want to say saved my season, but it definitely helped save my season. I traded Austin Eckler and Michael Thomas for Davante Adams and Darrell Henderson. And Caleb doesn't have Eckler anymore. I don't have Henderson anymore, but we both have Thomas and Adams. So essentially, it was a straight-up Davante Adams, Michael Thomas trade. And I would like to say I won that trade. Obviously, he doesn't really need Michael Thomas. And, Michael Thomas can go off if he needs to. But the reason I wanted to go out and get Adams is because you have Rodgers, who has, just a few seasons left, honestly, before he starts to just fall off the cliff. And they have a very high potent offense right now, very pass-heavy offense. I mean, when Jones comes back to be full healthy, it'll be more split, but right now it's a very pass-heavy offense. You have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and I needed one of those players that you can say, all right, I need a go-to player that can go get me 30 points a game every week. Every week. I need that player that's the go-to player, like the Randy Moss or the Jerry Rice, the Gronkowski with Brady. Like the player to say, hey, that's their go-to player, the superstar on that team. I needed that. That's why I pulled the trigger on Adams. Yes, Michael Thomas is an incredible player, right? But he's having to compete with Kamara now for fantasy points, which is going to be incredibly difficult to keep pace with. Yes, Jones will get his fair share as well, but he is not a receiving back. He's a running back. Their receiver that they go to in goal line plays, they go to in red zone plays, they go to on post routes, they go to on seam routes, they go to on slants, and everything else that you can possibly think of is Davante Adams, who is right now a top 3 wide receiver in the league, and he missed 4 or 5 games, which is just incredible. So I'm very happy with that trade. I don't think either of us got fleeced, though. I think Caleb he gained Michael Thomas, who, the receptions leader last year, just the offensive player of the year, nothing big deal. But the fact that he can slide him in a slot and still have Diggs and Tyreek Hill in his wide receiver slots in 1 and 2, I don't know, man. I'm not really sure what we were thinking there. But I will say, for all of the crazy trades that happened with Nephew, where it seemingly looked like we were just giving him best players, that didn't happen to me, right? I gained one of the top receivers in the league back. And so I don't feel like I lost that trade at all. I think that trade was good for both of us. I will say that a lot of the other trades were very questionable, and I would definitely go back and say, what were you doing? But I think now everyone kind of understands where they stand after this first season. We're now 10 weeks in. You really kind of know, okay, I'm either going to make the playoffs or I'm going to not make the playoffs. And if you're not making the playoffs, you're looking towards, okay, I need to start trading for draft picks. I need to start, let me get my position set in the draft, start looking at mock drafts, and just wait till after the playoffs. And so we have this last trade here I like to look at, which isn't a big trade. It's not a league-breaking change at all, but it was just kind of funny to me. Stone King traded Deontay Johnson. He traded Justin Jefferson to Sammy for Deontay Johnson, and now as it stands today, Sammy has both those players on his roster.
The worst deal I think I've ever seen negotiated.
So that just kind of shows you that, trades are boom or bust, as well as every other position in the fantasy league. Either are going to gain back a lot of great talent, or you're going to fleece somebody, or it's going to be fair for both of you, or it's just going to be bad for both of you. Either way. But that is how the trades have shaped up in this league. and we still have 0 trades from Luke Walesky. However, I will say it's a little difficult to trade with him when his best players are Kamara and Murray, and those are his 2 untouchable players. So I did make the statement that his only desirable players are such and such, and I kind of got some flack back for that. But what I meant was by that is, yes, these players are desirable, but I'm only talking about the players that you are even willing to trade. And so it just makes it a little difficult there. But, Luke and Justin are fighting for the last playoff spot, so I can't say anything yet. I got to look and see how that spot goes up. But speaking of the playoff spots, let's go ahead and take a look at where we stand heading into this week and which teams will be making that shot at the Super Bowl for our league and which teams are going to say, you know what, let me go ahead and get ready for the draft. So if we look at the league standings, we're going to look at the playoff bracket. Right now we have Nathan Armstrong, Team Yes Sir, scheduled to play Luke Walesky in the first round, the 1 and 4 seed, and I will play Nephew as the 2 seed. I will be the 3 seed. And then obviously the teams that are fighting for the draft picks are Dawson, Sammy, Justin, and Stone King. But Justin still could go up and Luke could go down. It just kind of depends how these last 2 weeks go. I've pretty much locked my position in. Caleb and Nathan have already locked their positions in. And so now I will just say, as we look towards the playoffs and also the draft, it's been a fun season. We still have a few weeks left, but I really enjoyed this. Not always have I had a league that has been as active as this league has been in terms of actually wanting to do trades and discuss opinions about players that were picked up or dropped in free agency and things like that. And I will say it's been very tough to do good in this league. And even if you're doing bad, this is a message to you people that maybe out there are having not as great as a season as you wanted to. I know for a fact that everyone in this league knows what they're doing about football. We all know our football. I've talked to each and every one of you. We all know our football, for the most part. There's different things we disagree on, but for the most part, we know what we're talking about. But it's fantasy. Fantasy is way more luck than it is skill-based. And just keep that in mind. Every season's different, right? We could have Caleb and Nathan run away with the league this year, and the next year they have a couple players get hurt, and all of a sudden, it's anyone's league again. You never know. And so now, as we close this out, I just want to say, shout out to the Epstein's Elite League, best fantasy league out there. Thanks for watching these videos. Thank you for sharing these videos. I've heard from several other people who aren't even in this league. They enjoyed the videos. So shout out to y'all for watching these if you do. I hope you like them. If you do like them, my page has got plenty of other content, so check that out as well. But signing off now, and we will say good luck, goodbye, have a great day, and let's go Giants. We beat the Eagles tomorrow. We're 3-7. About to win the league. Good night.